Now, as you can tell from our previous lesson, we made some changes to our forms. It's starting to look better, but it looks like we could definitely style up our page a little bit better because we can't really make the association with all of our fields because you see phone labels here, and here's our box all the way down here. It just doesn't look good. So sometimes labels and fields require styling to optimize their usability, and a good layout can transform a disorganized list of words and boxes into sets of labels and fields whose relationship is clear, and we definitely want to do that here. So in this next section of customizing text fields, we're going to add styles to the style sheet to display the labels and text boxes in parallel columns. We're also going to use an HTML attribute to add placeholder text to two of the fields in our form. Let's go ahead and look at those steps now, and then we'll get proceeding. Here are the 9 steps we're going to be performing. And as you can see in our figure here, our text boxes have been positioned in size and a placeholder text applied. Let's go ahead and perform those steps now to complete this portion of Unit J under Customizing Text Fields. To start out with, we're going to open up our llform.css in our text editor that we created earlier. So let's go ahead and open up that. Now you may notice that when you open up your llform cascading style sheet that it's all a jumbled text file, and you can take the time to, as I did, to go through and clean it up and make it look like your normal CSS sheets that we've been working with, just because it's cleaner and it's easier to use. It may take a while. I don't have mine completely done yet, but I've got it cleaned up enough that you guys can see the work that we need to do in this portion. So we'll go ahead, and the first thing we're going to do is create a style rule for label elements in the element with the ID contact info, and then we're going to set that to display. We're going to set the display to block, the position to relative, and a margin to 12 pixels, 0. And that's how we're going to set up our style text input and label code. So let's go ahead and do that now. We're going to scroll down here. We'll go ahead and put it at the bottom here. Go ahead and start a new line. And it's to be hashtag contact info label. And you can see that that's our normal way that we set up our code for our cascading style sheets. And you can refer to figure J-6 in your eText to see the code for this as well. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is create a style rule for input elements in the element with the ID contact info, and then we're going to set position absolute and left to 100px. So let's go ahead and we'll just go ahead and create that one directly underneath this one. There we go. We've created our style rule for input elements in the element with the ID contact info. Set the position to absolute and left 100px. I'm going to go ahead and clean that up a little bit after my semicolon. There we go. That looks a lot better. And we have a couple more style rules to create here. We're going to create a style rule for the elements with the ID's name input and email input and set width to 30 EM. Then create a style rule for the element with the ID phone input and set width to 12 EM. Once you're done with that, compare your code to figure J6, as I mentioned before, just to make sure everything looks good. We'll add that code now. So I've done the name input, email input, and the phone input style rules. So let's go ahead and save our work now, and we're going to reload our we're going to refresh our contact.html file in our web browser. Now let's go back into our HTML file and we'll edit a little bit more in there. Okay, now that we're back in our contact.html file, we are going to go ahead and go down to the input tag with the ID name input and we're going to add a name value pair placeholder equals first and last name in quotes. So let's go ahead and go down here and first find our input tag with the ID name input. There we go. So what we'll do here is we'll add a space, and then we'll put in that name value pair as such. Now what this will do is in our text box, it will display this text here. And then once the user decides to select that text box and put information in there, that will disappear. Placeholder text can be useful in providing examples and formats for input or for describing what users should be entering into a given text box on a web form. Now let's go ahead and in the input tag with the ID email input, we are going to add a name value pair placeholder equals address at example.com to give our users an example of the type of information, the format of the information to be entered into this field. Let's go ahead and enter that information now. Just add a space, and there's the information that needs to be put in. Let's go ahead and save our work. Now that you've saved your work, we're going to return to our LL form cascading style sheet in our text editor. Then we're going to add a style rule based on the input focus and text area focus selectors that sets the background to hashtag E3D5BA. And this rule changes the background color for the field a user is working with. So pretty simple, but let's go ahead and put that information into our cascading style sheet. Okay, now that we're back into our cascading style sheet, we will go ahead and put our input focus, text area focus code right here. We'll go right below here as we're staying in alphabetical order. Let's go ahead and enter a line. Let's input our code there. And you see we've changed the background color using the style code here. Let's go ahead and save our work now. And we're going to refresh our HTML page in our browser, and we'll just see that the placeholder text and formatting that we just put in has been applied and looks like it does in figure J-8 in your eText. And I refresh, and you can see that our changes have been applied. Hopefully yours looks like that, because it does look very similar to what is in our figure J-8. And if we click in the name text box and type our name, we'll just use Billy Bob IT Guy again. You can see how the cursor's flashing there, and we still have first and last name. But as we type, that disappears. And we can tab down to the next field, and we'll see the address at example.com disappears. And it has told us the format that we should be using. There you go, guys. That is it for customizing text fields. That'll conclude this portion. We'll jump into the next portion and get that conducted as we work with creating checkboxes in our web form.